What is the true cost of a nation's flawless reputation?
Wow. That's a profoundly heavy question to start us off today.
Gary?
Because, we usually like to think of a pristine national reputation as being built on stability or, I don't know, innovation and good deeds.
Sure. Like the things they put on the brochures.
Exactly, the brochure stuff. But
Hmm.
if you look historically, those spotless reputations are very often constructed directly on top of what a society, chooses to sweep under the rug.
Yeah, the hidden costs. And welcome back, everyone, to part 7 of our deep dive into the visionary novel Fünf Eide, or Five Oaths, by the Swiss economist and author Dr. Pooyan Ghamari.
Yeah.
And actually, just a quick note for our listeners before we get rolling into the heavy stuff today. The author's name is pronounced Ghamari. Just want to make sure we've got that right. So let's unpack where we left off.
Right, because last time was intense.
So intense. In our last discussion, we were deeply immersed in the shadows of World War II. We watched Miriam Rossi discover the tragic fate of Eva Lowy, and we saw her lay down these incredibly strict, independent conditions for managing her family's wealth.
Yeah, their legacy moving forward.
Right.
Miriam essentially built a financial firewall. I mean, her goal was to ensure the family's reserves couldn't just, blindly profit off the silence of victims ever again.
Right.
And the mission for today's deep dive is to see how, or I guess even if, that firewall holds up.
Yeah, does it actually work?
Exactly. We are transitioning out of that World War II era and moving into the 1960s through the 1980s. We're going to uncover a completely different kind of systemic abuse that was happening, really, right out in the open.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. It's the institutionalization of vulnerable citizens within the Swiss welfare system. And crucially, we're going to bridge that history directly to the modern 2026 timeline.
Where the victims of that system are finally forcing a reckoning.
Yes.
A massive reckoning.
And what a reckoning it is. I mean, let's actually just jump right into 2027 to see the fallout first, because it's so good. We have Ruth Zingg, who is a survivor of this systemic institutionalization, sitting down with the modern heirs of this wealth, Lena and Viktor.
Right.
But Ruth, she instantly rejects the entire premise of a standard corporate negotiation.
She doesn't play the game at all.
Not even a little bit. Lena and her team want a quote-unquote roundtable discussion to hash things out, and Ruth just shuts it down immediately. She tells them roundtables are for people who already know where they sit.
Man, you can just feel the tension in that line alone.
Oh, absolutely.
She is instantly neutralizing their corporate power dynamics. Think about it. The round table is a classic symbol of equality in a boardroom, right?
Like King Arthur and his knights.
Exactly, a sort of modern King Arthur concept where everyone allegedly has an equal voice. But Ruth is pointing out that this is a false equality.
If the corporation already holds the historical wealth and the institutional data and, the societal power, setting up a roundtable is just theater.
Yeah, it's totally performative, and she refuses to play along with that theater. And she makes that point incredibly visual, too, which I loved.
Yes, the glasses.
The glasses. So there are 4 people scheduled for this meeting, right? Ruth, Lena, and 2 others from the corporate side. But when Ruth arrives, she sets out 5 glasses on the table, and she intentionally leaves that 5th glass completely empty. And when Lena, inevitably asks who it's for, Ruth replies, for the person we will forget, so we notice the space is empty.
It is such a chilling, calculated move.
Right?
She is controlling the psychology of the room before anyone even sits down.
It really is. It's, I was thinking about this. It's kind of like setting a place for Elijah at Passover.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, but instead of, inviting a prophet to bring good news or something, Ruth is forcing these corporate heirs to sit with the ghost of the victims that the system actively tried to erase. Yes.
She is making the historical absence visible right there in the boardroom.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. She is forcing them to sit with the weight of their own history. And because she sets that tone immediately, she dictates the entire negotiation.
She really does.
She completely refuses to let her trauma be a good story for the family's redemption arc.
Right. She's not going to be their PR win.
Exactly. Ruth knows exactly what the standard corporate playbook looks like in these situations.
Oh, yeah, they pay the victim a quiet settlement.
Right. A quiet settlement, put their name on a little bronze plaque somewhere.
Yep.
Issue a beautifully worded press release about learning from the past, and then they just close the book forever. But Ruth brings out these non-negotiable conditions that are just staggering. I mean, she demands independent representation with majority rights in any fund they try to set up. She wants a public, traceable accounting of the wealth. And my absolute favorite part, she demands an irrevocable financial contribution be made before anyone from the company is even allowed to utter the words image or marketing.
Yeah, by doing that, she's cutting off all their traditional escape routes.
Completely.
If we connect this to the broader themes of the deep dive, Ruth is demanding structural, systemic change. She doesn't want charity.
No.
And this demand sends absolute shockwaves back to the corporation Falk Rhine. We see Viktor at a board meeting shortly after, and the staging of this scene by the author is brilliant. Viktor purposely takes the window seat.
Which, if I remember correctly, is the seat he usually avoids at all costs, right?
He does avoid it, yeah, and for a very specific psychological reason. If you sit facing the window in a boardroom, you only see the rest of the board in the reflection of the glass.
Oh, interesting.
You aren't making direct eye contact. So you lose the ability to physically dominate or control the room.
Right.
By intentionally taking that seat, Viktor is symbolically accepting a total loss of control. He pitches Ruth's conditions to a board that is absolutely terrified.
Oh, they are completely panicking. They're arguing about what they call cascading effects. They're terrified that if they admit fall here, if they agree to Ruth's terms, what else unravels?
Exactly.
And Viktor literally risks his operative seat on the board and his variable compensation just to force an external review. He looks at them and says, we can't afford a moral fantasy.
The fantasy being the idea that a corporation can simply, ignore the historical origin of the wealth they manage.
Right.
But, to truly understand why Ruth Zingg wields this absolute unbending demand for autonomy today, we can't just look at the boardroom in 2026.
You have to go back.
We have to go back to 1962. We have to see how all her autonomy was originally stolen.
Okay, so let's go there. Because this is where Clara, Miriam's daughter, comes in. She's 14 years old, and she's just looking for stamps in her house.
Right, such an innocent beginning.
Yeah, just looking for stamps. But instead, she finds this file marked with a K.
The K Reserve.
The K Reserve.
Right.
And inside, she sees a name. Zingg. Ruth. Born 1948, under prolonged institutional care.
Yes.
And this leads to this fierce confrontation between Miriam and Dr. Steiner, who is the estate lawyer. And Steiner, he treats Ruth like she's just a line item on a spreadsheet.
Right. He calls her a historically unclear position.
God, that language is so cold. The historically unclear position, and he sees her as a threat to corporate continuity. But Miriam is not having it. She demands an independent investigation, completely refusing to let the reserve operate while feeding off the silence of victims.
It's a huge moment for Miriam.
It is. But wait, let me just unpack this for a second. Are you saying the Swiss welfare system was essentially using private financial reserves, like this K reserve, to, quietly fund the displacement of citizens who just didn't fit their mold of a proper family?
This is exactly what was happening. Yes. The state was institutionalizing people, often children from broken homes or single mothers, sending them to farms or asylums to work. And the management of these reserves was deeply intertwined with that system, profiting from or sustaining the very structures that kept these people silenced.
That is horrifying.
It is, and Miriam realizes this, which is why she gives Clara that intense warning right after Clara finds the file.
Right. She tells her, do not search for these people just to make yourself feel better.
Exactly. She's warning her about the selfish nature of, quote-unquote, saving people.
But
does a 14-year-old actually internalize a lesson that complex?
That's what I was thinking, because it feels like a massive psychological burden to carry into adulthood.
That is the pivotal question, isn't it? And the short answer is no. She doesn't fully internalize it.
Yeah.
Instead, the realization that her family's wealth has this dark stain completely rewires Clara's worldview, but it twists her. She grows up carrying this immense amount of guilt, and she becomes desperate to fix the injustices of the world, basically to balance her family's ledger.
Which leads us to 1968 and her introduction to Daryoush.
Yes, Daryoush Darvishi.
He is this brilliant Iranian immigrant, a trained chemist who arrives in Basel only to find that the Swiss authorities flat out refuse to recognize his diploma.
Right.
He is entirely marginalized by the very system that Clara benefits from.
And Clara meets him right after he gets rejected for a job. He is so deeply frustrated by the bureaucracy that he practically slams a door off its hinges.
Yeah, he's just had enough.
And Clara steps in. She has the societal connections, she has the privilege, and she helps him get a temporary gig.
Yeah.
And they start bonding over this shared frustration with this rigid society that arbitrarily decides who is worthy and who isn't.
And their relationship develops alongside some pretty massive social shifts happening in the background, too. If we fast forward a bit to 1971, this is a monumental year in Switzerland. It's the year women finally get the right to vote on the federal level.
It's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
Clara votes for the first time, and it's this profound moment of empowerment for her. But Dr. Ghamari uses this moment to highlight a really sharp, almost painful contrast with Daryoush's reality.
Because Daryoush can't vote.
Exactly. Think about the social dynamics at play. Daryoush lives in Switzerland. He pays taxes there. He manages a team in a laboratory. But because he is an immigrant without citizenship, he has absolutely no voice in the society he is contributing to.
It's a trap so many of us fall into, right? You see someone you care about struggling with a systemic issue, and if you have privilege, your first instinct is to just pull them into your lifeboat. But you don't realize you're making them a passenger on your ship instead of the captain of their own.
Oh, that's incredibly well put.
Thanks. I mean, Clara feels this rush of political enfranchisement, and her immediate reaction is to try and fix Daryoush's status. She proposes marriage to him specifically as a bureaucratic loophole to get him a passport.
Yeah, and you're picking up on the exact dynamic that causes Daryoush to pull back there. He is deeply offended by the proposal.
Yeah, I would be too.
Right, he rejects it as a solution and explicitly warns her not to turn him into a project. Clara thinks she is sharing her newfound power, but Daryoush sees that she is actually just exercising her power over him.
Yeah, she is basically trying to use her privilege like a giant umbrella to shield him from the rain, but she doesn't realize that holding the umbrella over someone still means you are the one deciding where they walk.
Wow, yeah.
She's stripping him of his agency in the name of helping him.
That umbrella analogy perfectly captures the tension between them. Daryoush draws a firm line. He tells her that if they ever get married, it will be because they love each other, not because she is solving his legal status.
And they do eventually get married out of love, and they start a laboratory business together. But this underlying tension over agency and unilateral decision-making, it completely boils over a few years later, in 1977.
The bank loan.
The bank loan, exactly. They have this massive opportunity to secure a loan that would allow them to double the size of their lab. I mean, it's a game changer for their business.
Huge.
But the bank insists on tying the old K reserve into the collateral structure of the loan.
And Clara, knowing the horrific history of the K reserve and its ties to the institutionalized victims like Ruth, she unilaterally refuses the loan. She refuses to touch that money.
Right.
And because of her refusal, they lose the expansion opportunity entirely.
Now, wait, let me push back on this a little bit. Wasn't Clara doing the right thing here? I mean, she's refusing to build her business on dirty money. Morally, she's taking a stand.
Morally, perhaps, yeah, you could argue she made the ethical choice. But interpersonally, as a partner in a marriage and a business, it was a disaster. Yeah. Daryoush is furious with her. And it's vital to understand why he's furious. He isn't mad that they lost the money or the expansion. He is furious because she made a massive moral decision for both of them without asking for his input. She acted completely unilaterally. She held the umbrella again.
I see. It's the execution, not the intention. She decided what was best for both of them without consulting him at all.
Precisely. He tells her, "I'm not the man who stays silent while the woman makes the moral decision for us both."
Wow.
It forces a major confrontation about how they operate as an equal partnership. And this conflict leads directly to the creation of what they call the two-key rule for their laboratory.
Okay, yeah. I was initially a bit confused by this part in the text. Did they literally just lock their files away in a cabinet so they wouldn't fight over them?
Well, no, it wasn't about avoiding fights or hiding things from each other. The two-key rule is it's essentially a constitutional pact for their marriage and their business. Yes, it was a physical cabinet with two keys for their most important files, meaning neither could open it alone. But it represented a hard boundary against unilateral moral choices. The core philosophy of the rule is this: warn before protecting, ask before helping.
Warn before protecting, ask before helping.
Yeah. You cannot strip someone of their agency, even if your intentions are noble.
That is such a profound framework for any relationship.
It really is.
But here is the tragedy of Clara's character arc, right? She learns this lesson the hard way with her husband, but she completely fails to apply it to the ghosts of her past. She still hasn't learned that she can't unilaterally save the historical victims of her family's wealth.
And that lingering blind spot sets us up for the absolute emotional climax of this entire deep dive. Let's move to 1981.
1981.
Clara is now in her 30s. She's running the lab. She's navigating her marriage. But she is still secretly carrying the heavy, unresolved weight of that file she found when she was a teenager.
Out of nowhere, she receives an anonymous letter in the mail. She opens it, and inside is a photocopy of that exact 1962 file she found as a 14-year-old. The one with Ruth Zing's name on it. And written across the copy is this chilling direct note. Do not search if you only want to help.
It's a message from Ruth. Ruth is now 33 years old, and she is fully aware that Clara has been quietly looking for her for years, hiring private investigators trying to track her down to make amends.
So they finally agree to meet in person at a busy train station cafe in St. Gallen.
Yes.
And the atmospheric tension in this scene is almost suffocating. You can feel Clara arriving at this cafe absolutely ready to play the savior.
Oh, she's got it all planned out.
Yeah, she's got her mental checklist prepared. Like, I can offer you independent lawyers. I can set up a private, comfortable pension for you. I can use my wealth to make this right.
But Ruth completely derails Clara's redemptive narrative.
She just shuts it down.
She refuses the lawyers. She refuses the money. Instead, she forces Clara to sit in the discomfort of reality and listen to what actually happened to her.
Which is brutal.
It is. Ruth details the horrific abuse she suffered on those state-sponsored farms we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
She wasn't just working. She was treated as a burden, as something subhuman.
Yeah.
She tells Clara that as a little girl, she was forced to go out and milk cows in the freezing cold before the farmers would even allow her to practice reading.
She talks about being systematically stripped of her own mother's name. Like she had to fight for years as an adult just to be able to save her own name without feeling a deep conditioned shame.
And then comes the breaking point. Ruth looks across the table at Clara, who is, sitting there with her metaphorical checkbook and her pity, and Ruth just tears her worldview down to the studs.
Just completely dismantles it.
She exposes Clara's entire selfish motivation. What's truly devastating here is how Ruth is essentially echoing Miriam's warning to Clara from 20 years earlier.
Yeah, the warning not to just do it to feel better.
Exactly. Ruth tells Clara to her face that this grand gesture of charity isn't about Ruth's well-being at all. It's about Clara.
It is a massive, brutal reality check. Clara thinks she is arriving at this train station as the hero of the story, armed with resources and goodwill. But Ruth essentially tells her, no, you are just trying to balance your own emotional ledger.
Yes.
It completely flips the script on what society tells us philanthropy actually means. Ruth says, you just want to turn me into a neat little bill that you can pay off so you can go back to your nice, comfortable life feeling good about yourself.
It is one of the most piercing critiques of wealth and guilt in modern literature. Ruth looks at her and says, I want you to leave. And don't tell me your door is always open.
Ouch.
Clara has to pack up and leave the cafe.
Oh.
And we see her crying on the train ride back to Basel. But, and this is key, she isn't crying because she was insulted or because her feelings were hurt.
No.
She is crying because she realizes Ruth is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Clara finally understands the harsh truth. The desire to act quote-unquote good does not automatically make you a good person.
It's a shattering realization that breaks her savior complex wide open. And, the beauty of the writing here is that when Clara gets home, Daryoush doesn't try to fix it.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't try to offer her an umbrella. He just sits with her in the pain. He reminds her of the rule they built their life on. Yeah. Help is not a character trait you just impose on someone. True help is something the other person has the fundamental right to accept or reject.
And this incredible character journey brings us full circle right back to the 2026 timeline.
Right.
Because months after that devastating train station meeting in 1981, Ruth finally writes a letter to Clara.
Oh, wow.
But this time, Ruth sets her own strict terms. There will be no money exchanged, no charity given. Ruth demands only independent representation and total legal control over her own historical files.
And Clara agrees.
She agrees. Having finally learned her lesson, she yields control to the victim. And that sequence of events is exactly why, decades later in 2026, Ruth Zingg is the one sitting at that table with Lena and Viktor.
Demanding an empty fifth glass.
Demanding an empty fifth glass and outright refusing to be a good story.
Because she spent her entire life clawing back her agency from the state. and she is never going to let a corporation or a guilty heir take it away from her again.
Exactly. If we step back and synthesize everything we've uncovered today, the core message Dr. Ghamari is weaving through these decades is incredibly profound.
It really is.
Wealth and institutional power are almost always insulated by the silence of those who cannot defend themselves. It doesn't matter if it's the state hiding the abuse of children under the guise of welfare or a modern corporation hiding behind sterile words like continuity and mandates.
The silence is the currency.
The silence is the currency.
And the absolute hardest pill to swallow for anyone with privilege is that when the powerful try to help those victims without granting them true foundational agency, that help isn't charity. It is really just another form of ownership.
Well said. True justice requires surrendering your control, not just writing a check from a position of safety.
Man, that is a heavy realization, but it feels so necessary to understand how the world actually works. And believe me, this story is far from over.
Not even close.
Next time, in Part 8 of our deep dive, we are heading into the social turbulence of the 1980s.
Yes.
We'll be looking at Daryoush's brutal, grinding struggles to finally gain his citizenship in a system built to keep him out. We'll explore the explosive political votes of the 1990s and uncover the spark that triggers the beginning of the end for the K Reserve itself. You will not want to miss it.
The shifting power dynamics in the next section are going to be a crucial turning point for all these characters.
Until then, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over as you go about your day. We started this discussion by asking about the true cost of a flawless reputation. But based on Clara and Ruth's journey, maybe the better question to ask yourself today is this. When you offer someone a seat at your table, are you really inviting them to speak, or are you just telling them where to sit?